Welcome, dear listener. Tonight, let us slip quietly through the worn oak door of memory and into a long-forgotten chamber where only candle flame and echoing footfalls remain. Feel the cool stone beneath your feet, sense the faint murmur of distant bells rolling over the Bay of Naples, and breathe in the comforting scent of beeswax drifting lazily through the hall. You may notice shadows curling in gentle arches along the vaulting above, shadows that once sheltered queens and courtiers, secrets and sighs. Here in this softened half-light, we meet Joanna I, sovereign of Naples, Countess of Provence, and whisper it, the monarch who would one day stand trial for murder. How heavy must a golden circlet feel when rumor clings to every facet? How quietly must a ruler speak to still the rustle of scandal? Tonight we unfold her story, not as a swift drama, but as a slow candle that burns evenly to its end. As you settle more deeply into stillness, ask yourself gentle questions. What dreams drifted beneath Joanna's embroidered pillow? What hopes flickered like votive lamps along her private chapel walls? Let the wondering be soft, unhurried, and patient, for we have the quiet of an entire night to explore. With every measured breath, the past grows softer, the stones grow warmer, and the corridors stretch out ahead, peaceful and unthreatening. If your eyelids grow heavy, do not fight them. The tale moves at the pace of slumber. Simply follow the glow of the taper and listen as history lowers its voice. We begin. Joanna was born on a fresh spring morning in 1343, when dew jeweled the citrus groves beyond Castel Capuano, and dawn tinted the Tyrrhenian sky a pale gold. In the nursery, linen curtains drifted like sea foam around her cradle, and nurses hummed lullabies in lilting Neapolitan tones. She belonged to the House of Anjou, kin to kings and cousins to cardinals. Yet in those earliest hours, she was simply a quiet infant wrapped in cream-colored silk, soothed by the click of rosary beads and the slow swing of a copper censer. Her childhood unfurled among velvet-lined corridors where frescoed saints watched calmly from the plaster. Tutors recited psalms in low voices, while outside the high mullioned windows, gulls wheeled above the harbor. When she first wore a coronet, just a practiced chaplet of gilt lilies, it slid over her dark curls and settled gently on her brow, light as a feather, yet humming with invisible weight. The palace seamstresses stitched her gowns from watered silk, muted rose, moonlit silver, and the softest shade of ash blue, colors chosen to soothe eye and mind alike. Evenings found her in the family chapel, hands folded, knees resting on cushioned oak. The smell of frankincense lingered, and an organ exhaled one slow chord at a time. She learned that monarchy was as much waiting as ruling. Waiting for dawn processions, waiting for papal letters, waiting for alliances to bud like roses on stone trellises. All the while, the Mediterranean rocked softly beneath her balconies, repeating its own promise of return, retreat, return, retreat. In time, betrothals were whispered. Cousins from Hungary arrived wearing fur-trimmed mantles, their voices rugged as forest wind. Among them was Andrew, her young fiancé and eventual husband, a prince with earnest eyes and impatient footsteps that echoed through cloisters not yet ready for haste. Joanna, ever attuned to hush and harmony, listened more than she spoke, absorbing courtly lessons in silence. That power might clothe itself in velvet, that danger might glide on slippers, and that a queen must move as gently as drifting incense, lest the tapestries themselves stir with alarm. Thus she grew, slowly, serenely, a candle sheltered by cupped hands, until the hour came when the crown, heavy with gemstones and expectation, would no longer be ceremonial. It would rest upon her head in earnest, steadied by hope, shadowed by rumor, gleaming softly in the torchlight of Naples' throne room. There is a hush that falls upon marble halls when accusation enters. In Joanna's reign, that hush spread like twilight after the sudden, violent death of her husband Andrew in 1345. The tale drifted on sighs, a midnight strangling, a body lowered by rope from a balcony into a palace garden scented with night-blooming jasmine. Rumor claimed courtiers held torches aloft so no breeze disturbed the secrecy, their faces as blank as wax figures in the wavering glow. Yet within days, whispers thickened, some naming unknown assassins, others pointing almost imperceptibly toward the young queen herself. What made this chapter so strangely methodical, so quietly relentless, was not the deed but the procedure that followed. A papal tribunal convened far from Naples, across the mountains in Avignon. Imagine the journey. Trotting palfreys, creaking carts, and Joanna seated beneath a silk-fringed canopy, the steady clop of hooves lulling her into contemplative trance. Each inn where she rested was instructed to ring small bells on arrival, not triumphant peals, but soft, courteous chimes, so villagers would know to whisper and bow. At Avignon, the court prepared a ritual of inquiry almost monastic in rhythm. Witnesses lined vaulted corridors, each given a beeswax taper to hold while they waited, flames trembling in the still air. Scribal inkpots sat like midnight puddles on long oak tables, and every recorded sentence unfurled as slowly as smoke. Cardinals spoke in measured cadences, their scarlet robes rustling like autumn leaves across a cloister walk. They addressed the queen with phrases formulaic and repetitive, almost hypnotic. Does your grace deny participation? Does your grace deny instigation? Does your grace deny knowledge? With each repetition, the question settled into a lulling refrain, as though the verdict might emerge of its own accord if offered enough gentle echoes. Joanna answered softly, her words rounded, her breaths even, maintaining a calm that felt less like confidence and more like surrender to inevitability. Around her neck she wore a simple reliquary, no jewels, only a sliver of saintly bone, its tiny glass window catching candle flame and scattering sleepy sparks onto the council's parchment. Outside, clerks copied testimonies in triplicate, an exercise so patient that quills sometimes paused mid-stroke while their owners dozed. The papal court observed a peculiar rule. No sentence was ever concluded after the 9th hour of the night. Instead, proceedings stopped at vespers, incense coiling upward, a silent request for clear dreams to guide tomorrow's deliberation. And so each evening, Joanna withdrew to her lodgings, where attendants unpinned her silk veil with slow fingers and folded it carefully, corner to corner, as though even fabric deserved repose. Weeks drifted into months. The tribunal, heavy with caution, finally absolved her, formally, though not in every whispered corner of Europe. Yet the strangest element remained. The murder of a king tried in a tone more akin to litany than justice, as if law itself had learned to cradle its own accusations gently, so none of the accused might wake too suddenly from the fragile peace of night. Clear verdict or not, a faint bruise lingered on Joanna's crown, an invisible blemish that restless claimants could not ignore. Years later, when plague-thin streets and famine-weary villages sought steadier hands, her cousin Charles of Durazzo advanced under banners embroidered with silent judgment. His soldiers marched slowly enough for prayer beads to keep pace. Their armor, unpolished, glimmered dully beneath overcast skies. Joanna retreated to Castel dell'Ovo, a fortress rising from the sea like a solitary hymn. Waves lapped the foundations in a rhythmic hush, the same hush that once surrounded her tribunal. Yet this time no court would ask gentle questions. Charles's envoys delivered terms short and final, written on parchment still smelling of wet ink. Abdicate or surrender to divine justice. She breathed once, twice, and chose surrender, perhaps because surrender felt quieter. They carried her northward to Muro Lucano, a hill fortress where pine trees whispered soft warnings in the wind. Within its thick walls she prayed, paced, and listened, to the bell that marked canonical hours, to the footsteps of guards exchanging posts, to her own heartbeats slowing under the weight of fate. On a still April evening in 1382, her captors entered her chamber bearing strands of coarse rope. No outcry pierced the air, no struggle rattled the shutters. The act unfolded like the closing of a book, inevitable, unhurried, final. And so the queen once absolved for one death met a silent death of her own. No grand proclamation followed, no triumphant trumpet, only the faint creak of wooden stairs as her body was carried downward, step by measured step, toward a future already dimming like an ember. They laid Joanna's body to rest in the church of Santa Chiara, among Angevins long asleep beneath slabs of cool marble. A plain habit covered her, no royal velvet, only wool the color of early dawn. A single taper burned at her head, its flame unwavering, its pool of wax widening slowly as hours drifted toward morning. When the last drop fell, an attendant pinched the wick between thumb and forefinger, and darkness pressed close once more. Charles of Durazzo took the throne, yet even his reign did not escape the slow crumble of time. The Neapolitan court shuffled titles, rewrote decrees, and hung fresh banners, but somewhere in each corridor lingered the hush of unanswered questions. Scribes tidying old scrolls, sometimes paused at the entry for 1345, tracing the faded ink that told of Andrew's death. They did not amend it. They merely folded the parchment a fraction tighter, as if tucking rumor into sleep. Centuries turned, and the memory of Joanna softened. In remote convent libraries, a few careless pen strokes transformed her name into vague legend. A queen of storms, a patroness of poets, a restless spirit. Yet in Santa Chiara, the tomb remained steady, dust settling in gentle layers, like snowfall no breath would ever disturb. Visitors who knelt there felt neither dread nor awe, only a muted melancholy, as if bowing before a lullaby paused in mid-phrase. When Naples' laws shifted, repealing statutes that once governed royal succession and papal allegiance, the parchments crackled but did not shout. The revisions passed quietly through councils lit by steady lamps, and each clerk, perhaps unknowingly, repeated the same soft cadence the old tribunal had used: read, pause, sign, pause, seal. History itself seemed to exhale, satisfied that the final page lay flat and unwrinkled. And now, dear listener, our candle gutters low, its flame a mere sequin against the encroaching dark. We have walked through silent arches, lingered beside parchment and plume, felt the hush of accusation and the hush of surrender, both as soft as folded linen. Joanna I of Naples, queen, defendant, prisoner, moves no more through torchlit halls, yet the lingering echo of her footsteps reminds us that even turbulent lives can be told in whispers, each detail smoothed like sea glass by the patient tides of time. As your own thoughts settle, let the stone walls recede and the faint bells fade into a distance beyond dreams. Breathe slowly, as the Mediterranean once breathed against the fortress walls. Inhale, exhale, retreat, return. Know that the night keeps watch, steady and unblinking, over stories now at rest. You are safe within its gentle embrace, just as the queen at last is safe within marble and memory. If sleep is near, welcome it as a trusted guide. If dreams arise, let them drift softly through cloisters of moonlight, unhurried and kind. Tomorrow will come in its own quiet stride. Tonight, only rest matters. May your thoughts dim like taper light, and may the silence of ancient corridors cradle your mind in peace. Good night, and may your dreams be quiet tonight.